Listen, I did film and television studies at university for 3 years. I spent hours reading countless books and articles on subjects spanning from film all the way to television. Not a single one mentioned Hugh Grant once.
I achieved the hardest qualification across any university or college ever, a 2-1 in history. Let me tell you, the only thing that I learned was that we, as a society, have a history of denying and neglecting Hugh Grant's artistic and cultural relevance, not just in this country, but in the entire world.
I met Oscar at a Hugh Grant-themed event I put on at the Students' Union.
It felt as though Diggory and I were the only ones there, and we agreed that there was a Hugh Grant-shaped hole in academia.
We decided to put it right ourselves. We want to show people that he's an icon in acting.
We want to show people he's more than just a bumbling posh guy.
I'm Diggory Waite.
And I'm Oscar Beardmore Gray. And this is...
Taking Hugh for Granted.
Hello and welcome to Taking Hugh for Granted, the podcast in which two Hugh Grant enthusiasts watch every single film starring Hugh Grant in the attempt to answer the simple question, is this film taking Hugh for granted? Is this film good on its own, or does it rely on the bumbling Brit for its acclaim? I'm Diggory Waite, and I'm joined, as always, by my colleague and fellow Hugh Grant obsessive, Oscar Beardmore Gray. Oscar, how the hell are you doing, mate?
I'm doing very well, Diggs. It's a Friday. We don't record very often on a Friday, do we? It's quite nice to sort of end of the week wrap up a bit of Taking Hugh.
I was gonna have a beer. I forgot. I was gonna have a beer with me because finish my working day, have a beer. But I'm not feeling very good about myself today. I feel like I need to have earned a beer, but today I don't feel like I've earned one.
Well, hopefully you would have earned one by the end of this.
Oh yeah, oh mate. After this, I'm absolutely gonna crack one. I can't not because I'm always in a good mood after this. I always feel like I've earned it. But no, last night it was really bad, and it's a Hugh Grant related story.
Yes,
there was a new Hugh Grant interview out at the time of recording with Drew Barrymore, so I was like, of music and lyrics, and they were together, and I was like, oh my days, I need to watch this. It was 37 minutes long. I was so engrossed that I didn't realize what time it was, and I had to go downstairs, and I was going to put my cup and my plate in the sink to soak in some water. The next morning, my mum comes in my room and she's like, oh, it's been a terrible morning. I was like, why? And she was like, I must have left the sink on last night because the kitchen's the kitchen's completely soaking. And as I came round, I was like,
no.
Oh God. Oh God. I was so engrossed by this interview. I turned the tap on and never turned it off. So for at least, 9 hours, the tap was just going in our kitchen. So the kitchen is completely ruined.
No.
And
Diggory.
And you can't blame me for that. You have to blame Hugh Grant for that. That's the only way you can do it. But yeah, my mum must have opened the door this morning to the kitchen and, pots and pans floating around in there.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, Diggs, this reminds me of another time when we were first living together at university. The first evening I was in our new house, I left the gas on. When you need to turn the gas off?
Yeah.
I just turned it all the way to the lowest point so it was still going. And it had been going all night. And I remember waking up at like 10 o'clock. Diggs's mum and Diggs had just come into the house. And all I heard was, oh my God, the gas is on.
Yeah.
And I was like sitting there in my bed, like having just woken up being like, oh fuck.
Yes, I mean we had barely even entered the house before my mum was like, what is that awful smell? And she was clearly smelling gas.
I'm pretty sure it was me, but at least, I mean, I guess with gas you can potentially blow the house up. At least with water you can hopefully clear it up, but that sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, because I think I'll be paying for this either in money or blood, refixing my mum's kitchen. But anyway, I think we should chat a little bit about the context of this film, 9 Months, which came out in 1995. Now, on this podcast, there's a certain something that happened in Hugh Grant's life. We don't want to say career. This wasn't job related. That sometimes we skirt over. Let's be honest.
We do.
However, it's difficult to avoid it in this context. We are, of course, talking about Hugh Grant's dalliance with the sex worker known as Divine Brown, for which he was arrested in 1995. And the reason we're bringing it up today is because the incident happened just 2 weeks before 9 Months was due to come out. And on the press junket for the film, he had to answer a lot of questions.
Let me start with question number one. What the hell were you thinking? No, I don't say that. I don't say that to be glib, but I think among most people going, what?
Yeah. Well, it's not easy. The thing is, people give me tons of ideas on this one. I keep reading new, psychological theories and stuff like that. I was under pressure, I was overtired, or I was lonely, or I fell down the stairs when I was a child, or whatever. But I think that would be bollocks, really, to hide behind something like that. I think in life pretty much what's a good thing to do and what's a bad thing, and I did a bad thing, and there you have it.
I mean, that's...
It's fascinating because at the time this captured people's imaginations in some way, because he was very upfront about it, and it wasn't your classic Hollywood apology where they would be making excuses, they'd say they need to go to rehab, etc., etc. People lauded Hugh Grant for sort of coming out and being like, yeah, I did do it. It was what it was, but that's it. And it's amazing because the film, a lot of people were thinking, I was reading some articles from the time, and they all suggested, they were being like, oh, is this it for Hugh Grant? Will he ever act ever again? And the film did really well, and Hugh Grant we're doing a podcast about him, so he did fine afterwards.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, this incident still haunts him to this day, doesn't it, really? What I love about that apology in some ways is that actually he is almost as bumbling in his apology on the show as he is in his acting at the time. So he came clean, didn't he? He didn't try and sugarcoat it. He said he did a bad thing. And at the end of the day, I think you've got to have respect for that. And he has paid the price. He paid the price for that. And, the newspapers in the UK, especially the tabloids, went after him. And if you're on Twitter right now and you go on any Hugh Grant tweet, if you look in the replies, there's almost every time a photo of that woman and being like, Hugh, you did this, despite the fact that that happened 25 years ago now.
It's also important to talk about the effect it had on Estella Marie Thompson, who is Divine Brown. That's Estella Marie Thompson is her real name. And I think from interviews and stuff with her since, she looks back on this favourably because she was able to do a number of interviews and TV appearances, all based around this affair. And she amassed enough money that she moved house, she put her children through private school, and it sort of kick-started a new aspect of her career. She starred in TV shows, she started a music career, she starred in a film called Sunset and Divine, The British Experience, in which she played herself, and another adult film actor called Mark Davis played Hugh Grant. We might watch that film at some point, not sure if we can track it down. But I think, as I say, it shot her into the public eye, and she, looking back, talks about that favourably. It started this new chapter of her life. But anyway, let's have a synopsis from Synopsis Simon about today's film, 1995's 9 Months.
9 Months, directed by Chris Columbus and released in 1995. Samuel Faulkner, played by Hugh Grant, has the perfect life. That is, until he finds out his girlfriend, Rebecca Taylor, played by Julianne Moore, is pregnant. Now, commitment-phobe and expectant father Faulkner might have to change his lifestyle for better or much, much worse.
Right, Oscar. Let's get down to business then. Hugh Grant in this film. What do you think of the look? What do you think of the character? What do you think of the whole vibe?
Well, for context, this really was Hugh's breakthrough in Hollywood. Like he had gone from 1994, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, tiny budget, kind of got lucky in a way, casting the perfect role for him. All the big Hollywood directors saw it, said, we want that guy in our rom-com. He gets taken over to Hollywood, huge budget, and basically kind of create a similar kind of comedy to 4 Weddings and a Funeral, that kind of bumbling self. It's an interesting look. It's quite similar to 4 Weddings and a Funeral, apart from now he has a monobrow and an earring.
Oh, yeah, the earring. Oh, yeah.
The monobrow, don't love it, but I think that is the 90s look, isn't it? You think of, Liam Gallagher, Noel Gallagher from Oasis, all those kind of musicians, they had the monobrows. Hugh is also rocking a monobrow, and he looks like what you think of when you think of Hugh Grant in the 90s. He's the floppy hair. And then he adds the earring, which is interesting, though.
The earring, the bit when he adds the earring is when he's sort of like, he turns into briefly, he's sort of broken up a little bit from Julianne Moore and goes like, it's kind of like the bit in Spider-Man 3 when Tobey Maguire he becomes like bad Spider-Man and like starts walking down the street and wearing suits all black and like his hair's over to one side and he's like being really weird, like looking at girls and being weird. That's kind of how, and you think, God, you look awful. That's kind of what happens with Hugh Grant when he starts wearing the earring. But yeah, it's great. And Julianne Moore, obviously, when she takes him back, she's like, I will marry you, but only if you take that earring out, because it's dreadful. And she's not wrong. I have to say, the opening of this film, when it's Julianne Moore and Hugh Grant there, and you see the hair and stuff, and they're there on the beach, it looks like when you watch embarrassing old video of your parents, before the kids were born. And I had to say, it made me very uncomfortable right from the off. I wasn't vibing it at all.
All right. Toast time.
All right.
This is amazingly enough to us. 5 incredible years.
Cheers.
There is a lot of kissing in this film. Julianne Moore and Hugh Grant kiss each other a lot. And I think that's why I was annoyed. I was like, it's painful to watch Hugh kiss another woman so much for me. So that's probably why I didn't like it that much.
Samuel?
Yeah.
Do you want more?
No, thanks. No, I've had lots.
No, not lunch. I mean more for us.
By which you mean the big M, mariage.
Well, yeah. I'm over 30, and I feel like something's missing.
Okay. Well, what could possibly be missing? Let's look at that, because we live in a fantastic apartment. My practice is really good. It's thriving, as they say. We get on, I think, better than most married couples.
Sure.
And I'd say life was dangerously close to perfection, actually. So, why would you want to change things? Why change what's perfect? Yeah?
Right.
This film basically rests on the idea that Hugh Grant has been going out with Julianne Moore for 5 years. He's living what he thinks is the perfect life. He loves his car. He really does love his car. He loves his car. He's happy with his flat. He loves his girlfriend. And at the beginning, actually, they seem like everything's fine. And then she is pregnant, and that really freaks him out. Now, that might be due to the fact that he's a child psychologist or psychiatrist, and the fact that the only time we do see him in work, he has this like sort of devil child who understandably might make him be put off kids, but also he speaks to Jeff Goldblum. There's some amazing actors in this film, and Jeff Goldblum is obviously really anti-kids as well. And what I found interesting about this is, do you see Hugh as the bad guy in this film?
That's a really interesting question. I've been trying to wrangle my brain as to actually what I think about this film.
Yeah.
I don't think Hugh is meant to be the bad guy.
No.
Like, he's meant to be the rom-com lead. He's meant to be the guy that we are rooting for. But it's hard to root for him because he's such a dick.
Exactly. I still can't quite get behind the fact that he doesn't want to have the kid. It does, and he goes about it obviously in a bad way, but it's interesting because he is the protagonist. It feels like you should naturally want to root for him, but it feels like he's the bad guy. So it's so weird. It pits you at the beginning in this weird way where, for me at least, I was like, well, I don't know where I stand right now.
He's in his 30s. Life is going perfectly for him. And then when Julianne Moore says that she is pregnant, it's like the wheels just completely come off. He's thinking, I'm going to lose all my independence. We're never going to have sex again.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to make loads of sacrifices, like sell my car and get rid of my cat, who's like 16 years old. And then he starts forgetting all her ultrasounds and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, you just wonder whether, like, if someone I knew behaved like that now, I would tell them to get a grip.
What's so clever in some ways about this film, I think, and you know what? Maybe I'm going to go out there and say it's clever, because Hugh Grant holds this position. He sees Jeff Goldblum, who's this smoking. His hair is so good. He's got a brilliant body. He's with some young, new, lovely chick that he's picked up, and they go and see Jeff Goldblum. And Jeff Goldblum's like, "Yo, dude, kids suck." Then the same weekend, he meets Tom Arnold, the actor, and his wife,
Marty.
Yes, and they have 3 young girls, and these girls suck. They are the worst. They're everywhere. They're all over the place. They're crazy. The dad is the most like obnoxious, loud, annoying guy who just is chatting at the dinner table and just won't stop going on about how great his kids are. And it's just like, mate, shut up. And so when you see that, you can understand why Hugh Grant, from all these angles, is thinking kids suck. I mean, Jeff Goldblum thinks they suck. This dad sucks. His kids suck. Like, yeah, kids do suck. You can understand it. And what I thought was fascinating, and this is what I wanted to say to you, it reminded me of Quentin Tarantino's thoughts on that scene in Joker, where the Joker is there with Robert De Niro at the talk show. And Robert De Niro isn't a bad guy, his character, the talk show host. He's just an asshole, right? He's just an asshole. The bad guy is the Joker. The Joker has done awful, unspeakable, terrible things. He's the Joker. He's one of the most famous villains of all time. So, and yet, in the scene with Robert De Niro, you're sat there rooting for the bad guy. You're thinking, if this scene ends and Robert De Niro doesn't get a bullet through his head, then this has been a bad scene. And somehow, as an audience, we're rooting for the bad guy. How terrible is that? That switch has happened. In this scene, it's exactly the same.
The rom-com version.
It's the rom-com version. I'm sat there with Hugh Grant thinking, you're the bad guy here, and yet I want you to punch Tom Arnold in the face. Him and his children are so annoying and they all suck. Punch him now. And
that's such a good point. I love that. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just Hugh's face. You can't not root for it. And maybe that's why they thought he would be the perfect character for this, because
exactly.
It comes back to that other point that we had when we spoke with Jess on the podcast Notting Hill. It's kind of like Hugh represents a sort of gentler side of masculinity. And I think that's, if you cast like, I don't know, some really butch, masculine man in this role, it wouldn't even, everyone would just think it's terrible. Like, it's a complete stereotype of men just, getting rid of all their responsibility and, not giving a shit about whether they're a good dad or whatever, all that kind of, all those kind of stereotypes. But because Hugh is like a gentler, more bumbling character, you can make a film on this premise, which I think is kind of a stupid premise.
yeah. It's a stupid, silly premise. And like you say, and you can follow him on his journey to turning it around. Whereas with, like you say, with other actors, maybe from that the position that he takes at the beginning, I would just instantly be like, you're the bad guy and I hate you. Whereas with Hugh, I was like, you're the bad guy and okay, I'm along for the ride. And right now, in fact, I want you to punch Tom Arnold in the face.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also a fantastic scene which I just want to add on.
Yes.
Where Marty and Hugh are in a toy store and there's a dinosaur, a guy dressed up as a dinosaur, and the dinosaur is basically, every time Marty turns away, just goes, "You penis head."
yeah.
And he's like,
"No, I heard that." No.
And then after the third time, basically they're in a toy store and they just start, Hugh and Marty end up like trying to beat up this toy dinosaur. It's quite amusing.
That's it. No. Yes, buddy. No, buddy. Hey, get off me, you fat bastard. Oh, shoving on he loves you. Lunch fucked up your ass. That was nothing.
Marty! Samuel!
Oh, you. Hi, Eddie. We right with you.
He is such a jerk.
We're in trouble. Oh, sure. Run to mommy. Come on, I'll wipe the floor with you. Oh.
That is mental, right? That is mental. That scene is crazy, and that scene doesn't drive the plot at all. It's just a random scene in there that's meant to be funny, and to be honest, it kind of was, but it was really weird and mental. And what it really, really cemented for me was, in this film, men get away with so much. Like, in that scene, they've just beaten the shit out of Barney the dinosaur, and their wives just go, "Oh, what are you guys like? Like, get back over here," and they leave the shop all fine. And I think now is a good time to speak about another man who gets away with murder in this film, Robin Williams.
What an interesting choice of a casting there.
Yeah, exactly. Robin Williams plays... Oh, God. Robin Williams... I can't believe I'm about to say this. I can't wait to hear what you think about this. Robin Williams plays a Russian doctor who's basically filling in whilst Julianne Moore's usual doctor is away on holiday. And he's this Russian doctor who's only ever operated on mice
and monkeys.
And now he's going to deliver his first baby, and it's going to be Julianne Moore's. What were your thoughts on Robin Williams' character and his performance in this film?
Oh, well, I mean, if it was anyone else, I would have said it was terrible.
Yeah.
But because it was Robin Williams, it made me laugh. I mean, it was really stupid. His Russian accent is...
ropey.
Questionable.
It's so ropey. I mean, we're big fans of ropey accents around here, as we know from Hugh's many weird and wonderful accents. But really, Robin Williams is a top actor and a top comedian, and even this is a shy accent. It's all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Chris Columbus, who directed this film, also directed Mrs. Doubtfire, where Robin Williams is the lead, and that's one of Chris Columbus's most acclaimed films, and that's excellent.
Yeah.
So he obviously just wanted to give him a little bit of a run out here, and yeah, I was a bit over the top, but for what it was relatively lighthearted. It made me laugh. What do you think?
I mean, well, Hugh Grant, when asked about working with Robin Williams, he basically said two things. He just said,
and he's a very nice chap, very hairy. That was the first thing that surprised me. He is hairy. He is hairy. I mean, really amazing. There were days I thought we were doing Congo, and it was. But he was tremendously nice. I mean, but
But that's odd. I never heard an actor described as hairy.
Well, it was just the first thing I noticed. They said, "Here's Robin Williams," and I took a step back. Like, wow.
Also, he was jealous of how funny he was, and the fact that you really can't, he is just working at 1,000 miles an hour and he's bouncing off the walls and stuff. I mean, the only thing for me is, it's so great to watch Robin Williams in anything, because he really is. He is fun to watch and look at, but the accent was odd, and I think he added a bit too much chaotic energy for me.
Yes.
Well, you're listening to Hugh Grant taking Hugh for granted on the radio. Hugh Grant taking Hugh for granted. Oh, the podcast show.
The ending of this film, it basically all comes together. Julianne Moore is giving birth. So is Marty's wife, and guess who's delivering both children? It's our lovely friend Robin Williams. It is. Have you seen the film Mother with Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem?
No, I haven't.
People who have seen it, don't watch it. It's terrifying. But people who have seen it at home will know what I'm talking about. The last 20 minutes of that film is the most fucked up shit I've ever seen in my entire life. And this ending to this film reminded me of that. It's chaos. It's loud. It's all over the place. It's slapstick, weird comedy where Robin Williams is falling over himself. He's shoving his face in people's vaginas whilst they're trying to give birth. All the men in it are shouting at each other.
One's got a camcorder.
Which eventually gets smashed. And this goes on for a long time.
I know, it's a long scene.
Did you think it was funny? Or maybe that's a leading question, but did you like the ending scene?
No. If I'm being honest, I thought it was really bad.
Yeah. I just wondered if I was just being weird and annoying, but no.
No, it was really over the top, and I don't really know. It was one of those scenes where it was kind of like you make it really loud and really chaotic, and then you think you're making it funnier by making it go even louder and even more chaotic, and you lose all the kind of comedy and subtlety that you had maybe when it was at this level. Then you went up that level, and it's let's talk louder and do even more stupid things, and you actually make it worse and just more ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you go from Hugh Grant smashing that guy's camcorder on the floor to then that guy turning around and pushing Hugh Grant onto an operating table and it flipping over. And then you go to Robin Williams falling over them both. And where does his face land? In someone's crotch who's trying to deliver a baby. Like, it goes from mental thing to mental thing. And like you say, don't get me wrong, this film, if you've seen a Chris Columbus film before, a lot of them, over-the-top things happen. We're talking Home Alone. We're talking Mrs. Doubtfire. That's kind of the charm and the fun of these. Well, those are family films. I wouldn't say this is a family film by any stretch of the imagination.
This is for men who don't want to have babies.
Yeah, exactly. But, crazy shit happens in this film, and some of it's quite funny. Like, you messaged me yesterday when you watched it, and you were being like... you just messaged me being like... praying mantis. Hugh Grant has these nightmares because Julianne Moore mentions that praying mantises eat the dad of their children after they've given birth or after they have sex.
Yeah.
The woman then eats the man. So he keeps imagining that she's a praying mantis, and there's some crazy wacky stuff going on there. Like, some of it's funny, but that ending scene goes on for far too long, and there's far too much crazy shit going on, and it's just not funny at all.
Well, I'm taking you for granted. Well, I'm taking you for granted.
Hugh Grant, when he talks about this film, says this is the film that he shouldn't have said yes to. For a number of reasons. He said that when, after Four Weddings and a Funeral, after it did so well, his LA agents were being like, come on, make a film. And they were getting worried about how many films he was saying no to. As we know, Hugh Grant is picky AF, and he was saying no to everything. And eventually he felt semi-pressured to say yes to this. It had a great cast, as we know, some amazing names. Chris Columbus, fantastic director, and he did it. And he felt like because he was getting paid so much more money as well, he felt like he had to act to that level. And he says now, he was like, I played it way over the top. And I have to say, his performance in it, at times when he could have done with subtlety and stuff, some of his acting is he overacts quite a lot. I agree with him there. I think he does. And I think that scene as well is a great barometer of showing you, like, yeah, this film is very, very over the top. I mean, would you agree with him? Do you think he should have said yes to this film?
I have some sympathy with him, I think, because I think it would have been tough to say no to a film with such a great cast and someone like Chris Columbus. And, when you hire someone like Robin Williams to come and do like a sort of slapstick comedy scene, it's hard not to go with the flow and probably try a bit too hard and just overact, like you said. And I don't think it's anything on Hugh necessarily. I mean, he was very honest and candid, like you said, when he kind of said that he thought that everyone else was brilliant and he was rubbish. I mean, Hugh likes to kind of self-deprecate like that. I'm sure he didn't necessarily think he was terrible, but it's part of the learning curve, isn't it? You're not going to be. He would have learned after this performance that, he doesn't need to be that over the top. He doesn't need to pander to Hollywood in the way that he probably did a little bit here. So I would say that it's just part of the journey, He probably learned a lot from doing this film. He got to work with some terrific people. So, yeah, not his finest work maybe, but worth it.
That's a great point. And I think maybe one of the things that we love about Hugh now is he doesn't say yes to everything. And I think this would have reminded him to be himself. Don't back down, double down. So after he said yes to this and maybe thinks he made a mistake, from then on, he never made the same mistake ever again.
Taking he for granted. Taking he for granted. Taking he for granted. What did you think, lads? Were they taking he for granted?
So Diggory, 9 months. Are we taking Hugh for granted?
Do you know what, Oscar? I am going to say, this is usually, I was saying to you off air, this is the kind of film that you would expect me to tear to shreds. And this is the kind of thing that usually I think I would be like, this is bad, this sucks, get rid of it, this is crap. This film is not taking Hugh for granted.
Wow.
This is what I'm talking about. It has enough edge and enough talking points and enough weird, batshit crazy stuff that it's definitely fun to watch, whether you watch it to hate it or whether you watch it and love it. It's great. And Hugh Grant is the main man. He gets top billing. He does some weird and wacky stuff. He overacts and it's funny. And at the end, it's kind of heartwarming, I guess, despite, Robin Williams falling over the place. And it's an important film in his filmic career, as you say, first big film in Hollywood. So for me, this film is not taking Hugh for granted. What about yourself?
Wow, Diggs, I'm going to disagree with you here. I'm going to say it is taking Hugh for granted.
Yeah.
Firstly, to focus on Hugh, I think I agree with you. The fact that he said he was poor in this film, I think suggests that we should acknowledge that this is taking Hugh for granted. I also think that maybe I'm being too woke here, but this is the classic 90s rom-com that focuses way too much on the male protagonist. And I know that you can look at this just at a surface level and have fun with it, etc. But the reality is that it's a film about a woman being pregnant, and we focus on all the kind of stuff that in reality, the man's role is so small in this ordeal. The woman is the one who's having the baby. She's the one who's, her breasts are getting massive. She's probably feeling terrible. She's got, she's
being sick all the time.
Yeah, and all that kind of stuff. And all Hugh can worry about is when he's getting his next shagging.
Yeah, and whether he has to sell the Porsche.
Whether he has to sell his car, whether his poor cat's going to be all right. So I just think the message is a little bit outdated. But like you said, you can look at this film and just take it for what it is. It's relatively funny, but I'm going to also agree with the reviewers, the box office. This has like 27% on IMDb. It's like 33% on Rotten Tomatoes.
The reviews are bad, but the money was good. It made money.
Yeah, it made money, Diggs, but I don't think anyone remembers this film as a classic, and I am not going to remember it as one of Hugh's classics. I came away from the film and thought that was a bit rubbish, if I'm being totally honest. So I'm glad that we disagree, though. It's fantastic that you appreciate it more than I do, but I'm going to stick to my guns and say we are taking you for granted.
I think you should, and I think you're absolutely right. I'm really glad you mentioned that as well about the women. I just want to say I completely agree, because I felt that as well. I think this film would have been a lot stronger if you had both of their reactions. You sort of like juxtaposed the two characters with each other, and you would show scenes of Julianne Moore doing her thing and doing funny stuff and her issues with it, and you show Hugh Grant and then they come together again. That would have been a lot more fun, and especially because there was that such touching moment where the mother of Marty's children says these really encouraging words to Julianne Moore, like the only time two women in the film ever speak. And it was a really touching, sweet moment in the toys shop. And I was like, I remember thinking to myself, God, I want more of this in this film. And it never came by the end. So you're absolutely right to bring that up.
I wrote in my notes, that was the only time where it's like, we get a sense of what the women are feeling in this film. Apart from that, it's all about Hugh's car.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I've been actually reading, I just wanted to add at the very end, I've been reading Matthew McConaughey's new book, Green Lights, and Matthew McConaughey says in it, he was kind of the next man down on the rank after Hugh Grant in terms of being cast in rom-coms. And he had this moment similar to Hugh Grant's in the kind of the mid-2000s, where the only roles he was getting were rom-com roles. He would get a script every other week to be in a new rom-com, to play the same role, the same guy. And he made the conscious decision where he said, I'm going to switch out of this. I'm going to change tact. I want to reinvent myself, which is kind of what Hugh did. And the reason he said that was because, one, it was getting very samey and he was being known as playing the same role. But also he felt that the characters he was playing in rom-coms were kind of outdated in a way where every single time it was about a man, he does something bad, and then the woman takes him back. But his problem was that the woman always takes the man back. But the man is why would you want to take that man back? Because the man is being really terrible. And I think that is encapsulated in this film. Because why, Hugh, he's been a bastard, basically. He's left his girlfriend of 5 years with no one to care for her when she's pregnant. And it kind of speaks for this rom-com that she would even want to take someone who's been not very nice to her back.
Yes, you can redeem yourself. Yes, it doesn't. It's not cancel culture. It's not one and done. He can come back from this, of course. However, all he does is read a book, And she's like, "You've read the book?" And he's like, "I've read the book." And she's like, "Come on, we're getting married." So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I have to say, regardless of this film, good or bad, I have loved talking about it and I love watching it.
A lot of talking points, definitely.
And that's why I just had to make the decision I did, because I'm just like, there's just so much to talk about and dig our teeth into, sink our teeth into.
Indeed.
Fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for listening yet again. Please do follow us on all the socials. We're at Taking Hugh for Granted on Instagram and Facebook, and at Taking Hugh on Twitter. You can email us, takinghughforgranted@gmail.com, if you want to chat or wax lyrical. Thank you so much for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Taking Hugh for Granted is produced, edited and presented by Diggory Waite and Oscar Beardmore Gray. The producers of Taking Hugh for Granted would like to state that this podcast is in no way associated with the actor Hugh John Mungo Grant, nor does it endorse his views or represent him in any way. Instead, by creating this podcast, Oscar and Diggory hope to celebrate Hugh's illustrious career, reliving his old classics and shedding light on some of his hidden gems. Hugh, if you're listening, we hope you approve.